evening, ladies. Welcome to tonight's event, our Women's Health event. I'm Nichola Hemming and I'm the founder of Women Empowering Women UK. We're a not-for-profit organisation that supports women in all aspects of their lives, from women's health and parenting to setting up your own business and running your home. So tonight we've got Michelle Brooks, who's a business owner of Desired Physique. Michelle is a personal trainer and nutrition coach. And she's going to show you how to manage your diet around your menstrual cycles, including when and what exercises to do, as well as what foods are beneficial to eat, which is fantastic. And then we've got Jackie Sacchiari, our women's health and fitness coach, and she's also our menopause specialist. Jackie helps women who are transitioning through the menopause to understand, prepare for and manage their menopause journey naturally so that they can take back control of their lives. Oh my God, so love it. And then later on, we'll be finishing off and I'm going to be taking you on a guided meditation to chill you out and send you with some healing with Mother Earth. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Michelle Brooks and away we go. Michelle, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nichola, for inviting me on. And it's such a pleasure to be here in, what's it called? World Fitness Week. Yes. There we go. That's the one. I'm going to try and share my screen. That's always the host. Nichola, can you help me to share the screen? I think you need to make me host.
Yeah, bear with me.
Please. Thank you very much.
Co-host. Go ahead. Fabulous.
Hello to the lovely ladies joining us. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Nichola. You okay? Lovely to see you.
Right. Thank you, Nichola. I can now share my screen with you. There we go. Just bear with me a sec. I thought the plan comes together. That was the bit I was nervous about. Now that works. All's great.
We're all good.
So thank you so much for joining me tonight. Who am I? I'm Michelle Brooks. I own a company, as Nichola so beautifully told you, that I am an owner of Desired Physique. I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach, and I help women with endometriosis to live a better life with their symptoms. I'm really passionate about what I do because I too have endometriosis. And we were just laughing before we started recording tonight that I've actually got endometriosis and I'm going through the menopause. I've got a double whammy. So if I start like forgetting my words or getting a bit of brain fog in between, then just have to bear with me and I will carry on, and I do know what I'm talking about, honestly. So yes, I got diagnosed with endometriosis in my early 20s after suffering all of my life. And I became very passionate through my studies in women's health, and in particularly, obviously, working around the cycle to enable you to have the better energy and use your energy at the best times of the month. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk you through this evening. So I'm going to be talking about tracking the cycle because obviously we need to start there. I'm going to talk about how you can manipulate your nutrition around the time of the month. I'm going to talk about how we can exercise to the best of our ability around the time of the month, and how to track when you're no longer having a bleed, because that bleed can be the indicator often of where our cycle is at, and how do you do that if you're not having a bleed. So we're going to go through that tonight. So first of all, tracking your cycle. So before you do anything and start working around anything, you need to know where you're at. So tracking is very, very important. Now, I always suggest getting a free app on your phone. That way it's really easy to do. So I use Clue, which I find very simple, but there's also other ones on the market. There's Flow, there's one called Balance. Anything that suits you and you work best with is all I can advise you to do that. And within these apps, they not only track when your period is, or, you know, if you're not having a bleed, then you don't have to track the period, then you can track other things. And this is where it can get really interesting. So you can track the mood, you can track your sleep, you can track your bowel movements. There's all sorts of different elements that you can track, and that in turn will give you information that you can use when you're working around your cycle. So getting on to the nutrition, and nutrition is really important for the cycle. Now, what I would say with a woman especially is to find out where your triggers are. And obviously when we're talking about triggers, I'm talking about bloating, because I find that a lot of women I work with are experiencing bloating issues when it comes to the time of the month. And especially obviously with women with endometriosis, they often can have a lot of food intolerances. So what I try and do with them initially is to find out exactly what is triggering that flare up, that bloating, that water retention, or that discomfort in the stomach area. And what I would do initially with a woman is to do a food elimination process, stripping the diet right back, taking out all of the common ones. So things like dairy, wheat, caffeine, alcohol, salt, and starchy carbohydrates and refined sugar. Strip all that back for a certain length of time and then add them in slowly to see what it is that triggers. And what then I would suggest is when you track where your cycle is in that week leading up to the period or the week leading up to when your cycle may start, try and avoid those foods, especially that trigger you. In the time after that, in the time after you've had your period or after the cycle is, ending, then you can start to introduce some of these things and they will pass a lot better. But if you have a trigger, then I would suggest really trying to get them out of your diet because it's going to cause this inflammatory response. But if you are going to have it in a time where it's going to pass better. But definitely in the lead up to your period, I would suggest not having anything that's going to trigger. So again, foods to avoid. And again, it's very, very individual. And this is talking like quite generally. But once you have found out what it is for you, then you can start to manipulate that and take that out of your diet, especially in that run up to the cycle. But I would say, like, obviously, if you found that you're not good with dairy, take that out, especially in the run up to your cycle. If you're not good with wheat, again, take that out, especially in the run up to your cycle. Starchy carbohydrates often for a lot of women don't pass very well in the run up to the cycle. And things to add in are, I always say, like good fibrous foods. So things like leafy greens, anything whole grain, really good fibrous things that are going to help you with having enough energy and having enough fiber in the diet to get you through that time of the month. So again, planning your month is really crucial. Have it in your diary, have it on somewhere you can see it that's clear. What I always do is I take my month and again, I have my Clue app. I know when my monthly time is coming and the week up to that period, I will know exactly when it is and I'll count back 7 to 10 days beforehand. Some women it can pass at 5, others it has to be longer, but me, it's probably around 7 days that have to start. Again, I cut out alcohol. I never have caffeine anyway because it doesn't agree with me. But then I'll start to really follow an anti-inflammatory plan very, very strictly in this run up to my cycle to give me the best chance of not having this inflammatory response. So know when you can eat something and when you can't is kind of what the message I'm trying to give to you there. Supplements, I'm not really going to go into a lot about supplements this evening because it could go on all night. But my advice about supplements is to know why you're taking supplements. A lot of people like reading magazines or they see the next star that's, endorsing a supplement and they say, oh, I'm going to take that because so-and-so is taking it, or your mate's told you that, yeah, this would be really good. It'll stop you bloating. So they start taking stuff. And not everybody reacts to supplements the same. So you've got to know why you're actually taking that supplement. Do your own research. And don't just go by what anybody else is saying. I can talk about supplements, but it's not because I've talked about them that you should take it. It's about you doing your research and knowing what's best for you. So similarly with nutrition, with exercise, we need to do the same too. So again, knowing when your cycle is, knowing, counting back that 7 to 10 days, 5 days, whatever it is for you that you need. But energies are completely different at different times of the month. And again, women coming up to a bleed will have a lower energy in that time. And sometimes not every woman again is the same. Some women, when they get to the bleed, find a big release and they will then start to have more energy. I definitely don't. But some women do. They just feel this like massive release and then the energy comes back in the time of the month. But not again, you've got to gauge it for yourself and know when it is that's best for you. So again, counting that back, knowing when the time is before it, and knowing if you react well or not during the time of the period. But map it out, make sure it's mapped out and you know where it is. And again, the energy, any woman, whether they have any kind of problems like with PCOS, endometriosis, any woman should train differently in the run up to that cycle, because energies again should be matched. So what I would say in this low energy time before the time of the month is to match your intensity of your exercise. So not go for like your personal best. If you're a runner, don't go out and try and like beat your personal best and then beat yourself up because you've not. It's probably because your sleep might be disrupted, your energies might be a little bit low. So don't try and do that in that time. Yes, train, but train at a lower intensity. If you lift weights, if you go to the gym and lift weights, don't be loading on the weight in that time. Decel, take the weights off, do a lower set, lower weights, and do a lot more reps if you need to, but lower the intensity. And then once your period's over, or once that energy is returning, then you can go for it. And you'll find that by doing that, by slowing that down, that you'll actually get a better personal best, because you've used your energy and balanced out the energy really nicely. What I haven't mentioned about nutrition as well is we could match our calories as well. Sometimes women need a lot more calories in the run up to that cycle as well. So I would add in about another 100 calories per day in the run up to your period, just so that you're getting more fuel in the tank and getting like a little bit more energy. Listen to your body. It's like really, really simple. There's a lot of difference between being tired and being lazy, and that you should know the difference in your own body, what that feels like. I know myself, again, endometriosis sufferer for so many years. I know when my body is exhausted and needs to stop, and I know when I just can't be bothered. So know the difference between that. But if you're too tired to exercise, don't push yourself to do it. Take that rest, because again, by resting in that crucial time, then once your energy returns, you're going to be able to use it a lot more efficiently. So don't just carry on, just listen to that body. But yeah, find out what works for you. Not everybody's the same. And I can talk about this, it might not be that in the run up to your period that you get a low energy. Some women have energy all the time. It's just a guideline, but know what works for you, and, just work around it for you. Stick to the plan, but choose what you love doing. Again, don't just take my word for this. You've got to choose some exercise that is good for you. I love weight training. I love yoga. That's what I do. But I never say to my clients, that's what you should be doing. Choose what it is that you love doing and go for it. If you like skipping, go skipping. If you like dancing, go dancing. Don't just, do what, again, somebody else has told you to do because it makes you lose weight, or it makes you feel this way. Do what makes you feel good inside. It'll lift you up mentally and spiritually. So that's my big advice on exercise. Don't just do what everybody else tells you to do. Do what lifts you up and lights you up. So what if you don't have a bleed? I've talked a lot about that this evening, but if you don't have a bleed, a lot of women struggle with this a lot. And I get a lot that come to me that maybe are on medication, so they don't have a bleed. Or again, women come into that time of life where periods are stopping and they get a little bit freaked out, because if they've especially worked with me, they get used to working around this cycle and finding that it works really well for them. But then when it starts to not be there, then what can they look out for? So patterns I often say is track your moods. That's where, again, the apps are really great at this, because you can track your mood. Food cravings are another one that come into it. Bloating, you might still get bloated. And your energy, again, just watch your energies. So note all of this down and check for patterns. I always say that if you're not having a bleed, if it's perimenopausal, let's say, and Jackie's going to touch probably a little bit more on this than I am in her menopausal talk that she'll be doing in a few weeks' time. But when it comes to like perimenopausal time, you might not have that 28 days that you'd had all your life. It might start stretching to being 35, 40, 50 days. But if you track this over a period of maybe 3 or 4 months, you'll start to see patterns again. And that cycle might just be that it's a lot longer. So you work around it in the same sort of way, but it's a longer cycle. You're not working to 28 days, you're working to a longer cycle. But again, you can track by looking at the mood, the food cravings, the bloating and the energy to also find patterns and work around that. I've also worked with women that have been through the menopause and maybe are in their, I don't know, the 60s, and they still have a pattern of moods. And it's not like saying that they're still having a cycle, but I don't know if it's psychological. I don't know really enough about this, but I do see patterns still in women that have been through menopause. And they will say that if they track the mood, they certainly have a dip in mood at a certain time of the month still. So I always say, still track that. And then you can work with that as well, so that you can manipulate your diet and your exercise around that too. Again, something I'm not massively up on, and I'm sure there are other women in Woo that know a lot more about this than me, but there's definitely something in the moon and tracking cycles of the moon. Women's energies match a lot with, I know, the full moon and moon rising and descending. There's different patterns of mood as well that you can track alongside that. Again, I'm not going to talk loads about it because I'm not going to pretend to know loads, but I do know that a lot of women track around the moon. Again, I've talked about this, perimenopausal. You can map out your cycle by averaging out the numbers. Just know your numbers, and again, tracking will help you with that. Keep a diary. I can't stress the importance of keeping a diary. Note down how you're feeling and note down your food. Again, you can find patterns of symptoms. If you like, obviously suffering from bloating, definitely by doing a food diary, you're going to find patterns within that. Tracking diary is all so important as a woman to know where you're at. And I can't stress enough that by noting all this down, that you're going to find something that's going to help you. And that is more or less it. I've gone through that quite quickly, but if anybody does have any questions, then obviously please feel free.
I've got a question, please.
Oh, thank you, Nichola.
Going back to probably your first slides about the foods that you eat and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What do you think for keto diets for women, sort of, you know, like you're on about bloatedness and all those sorts of things? A keto diet seems to eliminate a lot of the things that you say. So
yeah, again, you know, it's an individual thing. For some people it works, for some people it doesn't. Definitely, obviously, starchy carbohydrates are massive triggers. So again, yes, it could work, but it's not for everyone either. Some people feel, especially when like you're talking about sport or exercise, some people feel that they need that carbohydrate intake. So the keto might not work for some people because they need the energy from the carbohydrate. Yeah, it's again a very individual thing, I feel.
Yeah, and I know you're probably going to say, well, it depends, but exercise as well. You know, if somebody's in their sort of mid-40s, you know, on the way to 50, how often, you know, because people say that as you get older, you should be doing weight-bearing exercises, perhaps weight training and things like that. You know, how often should women be exercising each day or week? Or
again, I'm sure Jackie will talk about this right in hers. So, yeah, no, I'll answer it, and then Jackie will give her little two penneth on that one as well. But it is very individual too. Yes, weight bearing exercise I would recommend for women in the 40s and 50s because weight bearing is good for the bones. But again, Jackie, this is phrasing Jackie is this, but exercise is like centered around like the 20 to 35-year-olds, and it's made like very high intensity and very you know, going for personal best and like trying to be the best you can. And I think when you get to like 40s and 50s, you need to be looking at things that don't put extra stress on the body, because that will cause inflammation too. So it's about finding the right exercise for you, but not putting an extra stress on the body, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
I've
you.
got a question.
Hello, Nichola.
Hiya. I don't bleed anymore, and I haven't done for about a year and a half. So when I do a diary of say when I've got a bit more of a low mood or I've got a bit more of a disturbed sleep, what will that actually tell me to do? I think what you're trying to tell me is that I need to listen and rest when I feel absolutely knackered and
Yes.
do more when I can.
Yeah.
And for me, for example, I've been introduced to seated yoga with the
Yeah.
olds. I go with the olds to the library, and
Nice.
we have a coffee afterwards. It's really nice, and I get to hear about their husbands and how awful they all are. And
Love it.
we put the world to rights after this event.
Fabulous.
But when I first went, I literally couldn't do it. I was sweating, and I was clicking, and I thought, my God, how do these women actually do this? And now I go and I feel fantastic afterwards, and they do a little meditation at the end and all that sort of thing. So it's been really good for me. And I think you're right. When you're approaching 50, pick something that pleases you, because it's not just the coffee at the end that's a real joy, but the actual going and knowing that my body can do that thing, and I know I'm getting better at it. But going back to what I was going to say, when I track that mood, what will that mean for me?
So do you find that each month it's the same sort of time of the month that the mood is completely different? Yeah. So that would kind of indicate if that's where your bleed would have been.
Right, okay.
Or the lead up to when you bleed could have been, because it's kind of like the PMS time.
Yeah.
So when you're getting that mood change, what I would say is slow things down and then start to manipulate the diet. And obviously you're doing an exercise that you already love. It's something that's not like too high intensity on the body, and it's giving you like mental well-being as well. So I would say that that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So you're saying if you are perimenopausal, then you'll still have a cycle? Because I had a hysterectomy, but I kept my ovaries. So I've no idea when. I used to know when my cycle was because of having tender breasts, but then it hardly ever happens now. So are you saying that I will still have a cycle? Because I do definitely still have those mood swings, and I definitely have those times of the month where I've literally got zero energy.
Yeah, it's not a cycle in the way that we knew it. You know, it's not like the bleed cycle, but there will be similarities each month with the way you feel or what you crave. Or have you noted that down and seen any patterns?
No. I've never, because I just thought that I just thought it was just kind of sporadic, and you wouldn't know, kind of thing. So
what I would suggest is try and do that. So whenever your mood starts changing, or if you get food cravings and things like that, just note it down, and you might find that it's a similar time each month.
And then cut out like your carbs and your wheats and your caffeine, and just see how
you go.
Feel from it. Okay. Fab, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right then. Are we done?
Let me stop sharing that so you can crack on. Thank you very much, ladies. It was lovely speaking to you all.
That's wonderful. Okay, so now we've got Jackie, and we'll straight over to you, Jackie. And do you need to share your screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're a co-host, so get sharing.
Oh, hold on. All right. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Good.
Fantastic.
Okay. I'm probably going to answer some of the questions that you asked, actually, because I decided to not talk too much about menopause and a bit more about, I've called it midlife movement rather than exercise, and the mindset that we all have about, or the approach that I see that we have to exercise, but also the fitness industry. So I'll just explain who I am, what I do, and then I will I'll crack on with what I intended to talk about. So I'm Jackie. I'm a health and fitness coach. I'm a PT. I qualified in 2014. At the time that I qualified, I had an 8-month-old baby. So I had a child at 41. And 2 years later, I just felt different than the first time I had a child. I had my first child at 35. I'd had 5 miscarriages in between that. So I was in a bit of a dark place for 5 years, kind of put my life on hold, not done a lot. And then just decided to go, right, I'm going to throw it all in and start afresh and do something I actually loved, which was fitness, basically. So I realized stuff was different. My body felt different. It wasn't reacting the same to exercise as it had before. And on a very personal note, I was still lactating out of my boobs, even though I'd given up breastfeeding about a year before. So I spoke to a friend of mine and kind of said, what's going on? She's a nutritional therapist. And she basically said, do you think you might be in the perimenopause? And I just went, what? So at 43, I didn't really hear the word peri. I just heard menopause and thought that's for old ladies. But the more she talked about it, the more I thought, I'm going to look into this. So I basically started looking into it. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that it sounded like me. So I kind of researched, I looked online for is there a qualification I can do in this? There was a really good female provider of that kind of stuff that I did an online course with. And then I carried on researching basically and starting to use all the things that I'd learned on myself. And I guess what I found was that I had to do things a little bit differently than I had before. My body was changing because of the hormones, and I just had to accept that and accept that I had to start doing things a little bit differently, which basically meant being kinder to myself. And then I just decided that I'd help other women in a similar situation to me, because I couldn't find anything else out there, basically. I just realized that the fitness industry was all aimed at like 18 to 35-year-olds, and what they were all telling everybody to do was not what was going to help them. So yes, that was how I got into what I got into. So what I wanted to talk about today, it's a bit of a kind of like, well, I love fitness, but I hate the industry in the way that there's nothing basically for midlife women, and what they do tell us is a load of rubbish. So I wanted to kind of just go through what the hell is going on in the female body in midlife, and it isn't just all about menopause, there's other stuff too. So what is going on in the body, and what are the key areas of focus that I think that we as women of that age should be really thinking about? Some things will sound very familiar, because I'll be saying a few things that the same as what Michelle has. And for me, it's about changing your mindset and getting away from that mindset of I'm going to go and work my calories off, or I'm going to go and work my roast potatoes off before I've even eaten them tonight. That's got to go. And we have to start thinking about the health benefits and, what should I be doing from a health perspective and getting older perspective, and what's going to actually help me, basically. So then I'll talk about what we should be doing, which is, I guess, a few of the questions that you asked, Nichola. I've put Q&R because you can ask me the questions, but I might not have the answer, but I will have a response. So that's why I said that. Okay. So what is happening to the female body? And for me, it's kind of this perfect storm. We've got hormone changes going on. We're getting older. And I think a lot of people forget that, or they want to forget it. And also we've got a lot of lifestyle changes. So we happen to be this, awful kind of sandwich generation that they talk about. So hormonal changes, we've got, if you still have your ovaries, we've got the perimenopause going on, which means that our hormones basically start to fluctuate. This can start from 40, it can start from earlier than that. It is so dependent on basically how many eggs you were given at birth, because the less eggs you have, the earlier you'll start to feel these changes. And it is very similar to puberty. And I kind of call it the opposite of puberty. We don't wake up one morning when we're 11 or 12 or 13 or whatever, and we go, oh, my period's here. You might have had headaches. You might have had your boobs sore. I remember my boobs being sore for ages before. You might have started hating your mum and dad or your best mate, and you want to lock yourself in your room. You don't want to see anyone. No one else is going through what you're going through. And it's a bit like that, basically. And, whereas that can last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this is the same. It can last even longer. And I think what's difficult is that women aren't really told this, or they're not aware of it. And so they think, I'm going mad. Am I getting, like you said earlier, am I going through, am I going senile? What's going on? Because I don't think a connection is made between, you know, the symptoms and fluctuating hormones, because most people think it's always about your cycle changing, and it's not. So you might be having a regular cycle, still having symptoms. You might have had a shorter cycle, still having symptoms. Not everybody's symptoms not everybody's cycle, will change, but they might start having symptoms a long time before. So I think for me, at about 44, I started going from a very regular 28-day cycle to a 23-day cycle. My bleeds were heavier, but didn't last for as long. And that then stayed for about 2 years. So they were regular, but more frequent. And then I started to miss one. So I'd go 50 days without, and then I'd have one 21 days later, and, you know, and so on and so forth. But way before that, there's so many changes. I mean, basically, we have estrogen receptors absolutely everywhere in our bodies, but they are concentrated from a woman's perspective, obviously around the vagina, the breasts, all of our blood vessels, the brain, the liver, the heart. And so and in the bones, and that's why our brains start to kind of have this brain fog. We might think that we've got depression. We might feel anxious. We might have mood swings, go into a confidence crisis. I can't do that anymore. And then, of course, the vasomotor symptoms of hot flushes or night sweats can happen. And they, you know, they might be common. Everyone always just thinks I'm having, that's the only kind of symptom, and it's not that at all. And mainly women talk about the brain changes, which isn't, for me, talked about enough. And I think that's what we kind of need to get out there, really, is you're not going mad. You know, there is actually a hormone imbalance going on, and it does affect your brain. So there is a lot going on. And I think, you know, a little bit like Michelle said, to kind of tracking what's happening as early as possible is just phenomenal. And it will help you over the next few years to really kind of help yourself. It's about putting yourself first. So we've got hormonal changes going on, and we also have aging factors going on, which I think a lot of people kind of don't want to think about. But as we get older, we start to lose muscle mass. It can turn into sarcopenia, where, you know, we don't have very much muscle mass anymore. That is happening regardless of what's happening with our hormones, but lack of estrogen does accelerate it. We also have our liver is aging, our arteries are getting, you know, older, so blood pressure starts to increase. We start to lose bone density as well, which again is affected by estrogen declining. But, you know, I don't want everybody just to think that all of these things is just a kind of hormone decline. It's also, that would happen whether you're a man. Okay, for us, it's just worse because our lack of estrogen starts to make things a little bit worse. So we have to be a bit more careful about choosing our exercise, about our diet, and about, you know, just looking at what we can do to slow down these processes. So how do I slow down losing my muscle mass? How do I slow down losing bone density? And we can't do nothing, because exercise will help with the blood pressure. It will help with our brains. It will help with our heart health. It will help with our bone density. So we do have to do something. And also, you know, we do have normal cognitive decline anyway. So, you know, as an older person, you do start to forget words, you start to lose your keys, you start to do whatever. But again, if people have ever had children, we all have this thing called baby brain. Oh, I've got baby brain. It's very, very similar to that as we're going through our, you know, perimenopause symptoms as well. But it's also, we are getting older. The brain's getting older. So I think we have to realize that we have this kind of, you know, whole little storm kind of going on. And as well as this, we also have these lifestyle factors happening. For some people, their lives are a bit less stressful than others, but sometimes we start to lose, have trouble sleeping when we start to lose a few of our hormones. That can trigger mood swings as well. It can also trigger some fatigue. We don't sleep as long or as well when we're older either. we then can start have to an increase in weight because of sleep. We can have an increase in weight because of our hormones. When we start to lose our estrogen, we kind of start to lay fat around our body like more of like a man than a woman. So whereas we probably used to lay it around all of our hips and, you know, we have this nice booty, whatever, we start to do it around the belly. And we have to also, I think, really think about if we've got young kids and we're helping older parents, or are we helping other family friends, you know, other things that are going on. And most of the people in kind of our generation are, well, it depends how old you are, but are dealing with getting older. They're dealing with going through, you know, hormonal changes, probably having a trouble sleeping, and young kids or teenagers, which is even worse because I'm going through that now as well. And then they just don't think about themselves. So, you know, people call themselves this kind of sandwich generation. They're in between. They're thinking about everyone, you know, younger than them, thinking about people older than them, maybe thinking about their other halves and partners, but not about themselves. And it actually has to become a time of stop. I have to put me first for a change, because if you don't, it will be a car crash. So you really have to start thinking about that. And when we talk about, you know, we talk about stress, it isn't just, oh, I'm stressed at work. It's physical stresses as well. And exercise is a physical stress. And that's not a bad thing, but it is a bad thing if you're exercising when you're not feeling great and it makes you feel worse. If you're exercising really late at night and then you can't get to sleep because it brings out, you know, it brings out your fight or flight hormones when you exercise, and then you're expected to just go home, sleep like a baby. It doesn't work like that. So, you know, that's why for me, a lot of gym memberships didn't work. They'd put all these HIIT classes on at like, you know, 7:30 and 8 o'clock at night. I might want to go doing that at that time of night, but there'd be nothing at like 9 a.m. So it's all kind of catered for the working 20 odd, 30 odd year old, and not necessarily for us. So I think we have to be aware that, you know, in our midlife, we've got to start to be kind to ourselves and start to think about choices that we make from an exercise perspective that's going to help rather than hinder, and make things better rather than make things worse. So I love this, because this is actually, you know, it is what's happening. There's a shitstorm happening, and we need to be prepared for it. And the more knowledge that we have, the better prepared we can be. And nobody's saying that we have to do everything overnight, but you just have to say to yourself, do you know what? I'm going to put me first for a change, and then do it. So give yourself that permission, and then find the person or people that you trust, find the, you know, the websites that you trust, and start to listen. And, you know, when I say that you trust, or if somebody's trying to sell you some rubbish supplements at the end of a course or whatever, they're just don't do it, because you don't need all that stuff. You just need food. You need to move. You need to sleep well, and you need to deal with your stress, and, you know, everything will be okay. So how do we deal with it from an exercise perspective? Because there's nothing in the market to help the midlife woman and to tell them what they should be doing and how we can use exercise to help us. So what should we be concerned about, and what should we be focusing on? And for me, there's, I would say, these 4 areas that I try to get clients to think about. You know, not everybody comes to me to be trained, but I want to give people the opportunity to know what they should be kind of looking at from a health perspective. And then they might say, is this good for that? And I'll go, yep. And then they work their own week around it, you know, rather than, it doesn't matter to me where people go, just as long as they're aware of what kind of thing they should be doing for their bodies and their minds, and what that kind of constitutes from a health perspective. So I've got 4 things here: functional strength, cardio-metabolic health, which isn't just heart, it's also about your metabolism, the neurological brain health stuff. And one thing that people really don't think about much at all is recovery, rest and recovery. And I think that as we get older, as well as being menopausal or perimenopausal, we need a lot longer to recover than we did before. You know, our cells are aging. They don't bounce back as quickly as they used to. We just have to accept that. So if we do go hard, don't go hard for the next couple of days. Allow yourself some rest. Okay. So what do I mean by kind of functional strength? It's about taking what you're doing from an exercise perspective or a movement perspective. We don't really like to call it exercise, but from a movement perspective, something that carries over into getting older. And for me, that means, you know, you might see all these things where people go, so you want to be able to squat and lunge and push and pull, and it's all these kind of movement patterns. For me, it is about pushing and pulling, but it's also about carrying, and it's about like being able to get up off the floor, simple things that you need to be able to do as you get older. You know, do you want to be able to carry your shopping home? Do you want to be able to reach up high into that supermarket and get something from that shelf? Not necessarily because you're short, but, you know, because you can get it. But it's what we can take. Does this exercise that I'm doing help me as I get older? And does it help me with my functional strength? So will it help me maintain or get more muscle mass? You can actually still have, you know, you can get more muscle mass as you get older, but it's much easier to do that when you have estrogen still. So it's much easier to do it when you're in perimenopause than after. Doesn't mean it's not possible after, but it is better beforehand, which is why I kind of try and target perimenopausal women so that they can kind of make the most of it while they can, make the most of the estrogen while they've still got it. So it's about kind of exercising so that it strengthens your bones, it strengthens your muscle, but it also strengthens everything around the joints. So it isn't just about muscle and bone, it's about all the tendons, all the ligaments. And estrogen kind of promotes the synthesis of muscle tissue. So if we lose that, then we need to use exercise to help with that, which means keeping it moving. And in a way where I'm not stood in a gym doing like a one bicep curl, but how's that going to help me as I get older? You know, we need to be able to incorporate it in a way that will help me as I get older. So sarcopenia and osteopenia. Osteopenia is basically where your bone mass, your bone density has started to, is the precursor to osteoporosis. So your bone density has started to kind of, you know, go a little bit less than it was. And what we want to do is stop us getting osteoporosis. And what that means is like doing things that are have an impact. And you don't have to necessarily jump, but it has to make an effort against the bone, the muscle, the tendon, and the bone. It has to make the bone work harder. So, you know, walking and running are great, but they don't do much for your upper body. So we also need to think about upper body as well. And then we've got our cardio metabolic health. One of the massive things that changes as we go through menopause is insulin sensitivity. And that is a precursor to metabolic syndrome. Insulin sensitivity means that our cells can get the insulin from around our body when we've got sugar in there really well and shuttle it away to where it needs to go. And they start to get, let's just say, lazy or not very good at it, because basically estrogen helps this process. So the less estrogen we've got, the more they go like, oh, and then we start to look at, you know, type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetic. And we really don't want that. Exercise massively helps with insulin sensitivity, but you don't need to be killing yourself to get that benefit. You need to be working at about 6 to 8 out of 10 for about 20 to 25 minutes with your session that you're doing. So all this, you know, exercise till you're sick is just rubbish. You don't need to actually, and who wants to do that? It's not nice, you know. You're not going to say to yourself, I know I'm going to go out and do that HIIT session today because I really love being sick. I mean, it's awful. It is awful. So you don't need to get to that stage at all. And then we've got our mitochondria. This is like, oh my gosh, powerhouses of our bodies. They start to age as well. And, you know, to stay healthy, we kind of need to keep the mitochondria working around the body as well. These are kind of little organelles that send oxygen and transport oxygen via our red blood cells, and doing things that make you, you know, a little bit out of breath. As I say, you don't have to be falling on the floor, but doing things that are a little bit out of breath, strengthen those as well. We have to be aware of our blood vessels as we get older and go through menopause start to get a little bit less elastic, let's say, a little bit less malleable. So they're a bit more sensitive to clots and that kind of thing. And obviously exercise is brilliant for your opening the blood vessels. There's also quite a lot of things in your dietary, things that you can eat, like anti-inflammatory foods are fantastic. Beetroot's amazing, helps to kind of, open those blood vessels as well. Anything anti-inflammatory is amazing for us as we go through midlife. But cardiometabolic health is just, I'd say, one of the top things, one of the top killers of women as they go through, I'd say over 50, 51, once they've gone through menopause, is heart attack. And we don't kind of present heart attacks in the same way as men. We don't have this clutch on the floor. We sometimes it can start as a little bit of like a bit of acid and a bit of, I don't feel well, you might get a headache, and it can start like that. It's not an obvious thing. So it's just being really aware that the heart is a muscle, it needs to be worked, but it isn't just about getting the heart pumping, it's about getting things going so that we're looking at and dealing with our insulin sensitivity and keeping our mitochondria really healthy, and really thinking about our blood vessels, because we really have to watch the blood pressure. So I think this one isn't really talked about very much, but how do we kind of exercise our brain, or how do I use exercise to help my brain? And what I try and do with clients is kind of like play games, use things that make them think about something while they're doing something else, like keeping a balloon up in the air while they're saying their name backwards, all that kind of thing of that cognitive help as we get older, and keeping that cognitive function going. Estrogen's really massively powerful, as we know, as we talked about. Everybody thinks that they're going mad, but estrogen's massively important for brain health. It's kind of neuroprotective, but it also helps with the brain energy, and sometimes that's why we just feel this like, oh, I don't feel like me anymore, I don't feel that, va-va-voom, can't be bothered, I don't want to go out, I don't feel like me. And we also need to think about like the connectors, the neurons, getting these kind of new, that's what we talk about when we talk about neuroplasticity, about forming new connections between our neurons. And when people have done studies on the brain, a lot of them have been done on men and not very many on women. And one of the women in the field at the moment that's doing a lot of work on this, Lisa Mosconi, she's literally just studying women's brains, and talking about, what to eat for it, how do we make it all better. There was some research, I'm just reading here on this thing about what she's put. She's associate director of the first Alzheimer's prevention clinic in the US. This is Lisa Mosconi. And her work found that women are more likely than men to be diagnosed with anxiety disorder or depression. Women are more likely to get headaches. Women are more likely than men to get Alzheimer's disease. And for every man suffering with Alzheimer's disease on the planet, there are 2 women. And what she looked at is why. And one of the things that everybody used to say was, well, women live longer than men. Not that bloody much longer. Like on average, about 3 years. Why does that mean twice as many women had Alzheimer's as men? And it basically turns out that our brains age differently, and that menopause, plays a massive key role in that, because our brains are connected to our ovaries. There's like a little motorway that goes there, and they talk to each other. So there's a bit in your brain and a bit in the ovaries that talk to each other, and this little connection. And as your eggs start to deplete, that connection gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's basically what's happening. And that's why we get the brain fog. Believe it or not, inside the brain is also what connects to your heat system. So it's not necessarily the heart that gives you the sweats, it's the brain. So as estrogen kind of declines and your neurons start to slow down, when we start to age faster. And so we need to just be aware that exercise can help that. It gives you these great chemicals, it gives you the serotonin, it gives you that feeling of yay, you know, and it also helps with this neuroplasticity of helping new connections. So, you know, go for things like, you know, I don't know if what kind of things that you do, but if people do things like catching a ball, throwing it into somewhere, you know, all like the games that we used to play when we were kids, those kind of things that really keep you in, because it had to keep them interested. That's what we need as we're getting a little bit older, just to put a bit of that into our, you know, into our exercise. I can't see what my next thing, oh, there it is, rest. And then we have to think about, which I think is the last thing that people think about, because a lot of women are putting weight on and they go, right, I know, I'm going to kill it in exercise and I'm going to eat loads less calories. And you're going, what? And then they're stressing out their body with more exercise, and then they're stressing out their body by dieting, because your body's going, what are you doing? So it's just a double whammy, and the weight obviously doesn't come off because the body's more stressed than it was before. So what we need to really think about is our rest and recovery. And yeah, as I said, aging is also inflammatory, and we want our cells to be basically in the best possible health despite getting older. We want to be in the best possible health we can despite menopause. Estrogen is also anti-inflammatory, so we've got this kind of double whammy thing going on. And it affects, this is why estrogen affects our ability to cope with stress, which is why coping with stress is super, super, super important. So if you're suffering from things like sore joints and lack of energy and not sleeping, then you really need to think about your toleration for exercise and stress relief things. And when I say rest and recovery, it might be a little sit down and a little meditation for 10 minutes. It might be yoga. It might be some Tai Chi, anything like that, that will just, you know, allow your body to have that rest that it probably hasn't had for a long time. All right. So this is really short, but this is the kind of thing that I want to try and get women to do. And if you tell a friend and that friend tells another friend, I'll be really happy. But these common misconceptions about, you know, right, what am I going to do today? Well, I went to a spin class yesterday and I looked upon that screen and I burnt 450 calories yesterday. So I think I'll go and do that because I want that piece of cake today when I get home. And it's just like, what? All that kind of thing has got to go. Thinking about linking food with exercise, linking calories with exercise, link any of that, just chuck it out of the window and start thinking about, you know, what will be good for my body? What will be good for my heart? What will be good for my brain as I get older? And just, I really want to get that message across of stopping women from having that more is better and more exercise is better, because it's definitely not what we want to be thinking in our age. What we want to be thinking is what's better for my body at the moment. And exactly what Michelle said, start to listen to it, because so many people I hear just go, oh my God, I'm just doing so much exercise. I'm like, I'm doing like 2 hours a day. And then I go here and I'm just going, what are you doing that for? And then I can't sleep. And I'm really fat and then I'm really tired. I'm not surprised you're tired. So more is not better. We have to really start thinking about being smarter. So I think you already covered this. Do something you love. And it doesn't matter, you know, I'm not going to say go to the gym, pick up some weights because you need to do functional training and increase your muscle mass. Anything that puts a little stress on your muscle will help you. Tennis is brilliant for things like that. Any kind of like racket sport is fantastic. Dancing is great. But you do need to be aware that we need to, as women, I think we need to use our upper bodies a lot more than we do. Listen to your body. So if you're not feeling great, then don't do it, and think about movement being medicine rather than, you know, calories in, calories out. So what should we be doing? And I've just got a list up here of things that I kind of recommend to people. We should be doing resistance training. But that can be anything that is resistance training for you. So if you don't know, if you've never done a push-up for you will be resistance training. On your knees is fine. Against a ball, you know, your kitchen counter is fine. And it all depends on what you've been doing before. But I think a lot of women think of strength training as about building muscle, but it's not about that. It's about maintaining what we've got and thinking about that, you know, metabolic standpoint, and also having that functional capacity. Will this help me to function older in later life? And like I said, for me, it's getting up and down off the floor. It's carrying something. It's lifting things. It's being able to push and pull something, and that's it. And incorporating those little things. And quality, for me, quality over quantity. So, you know, sometimes you have these people screaming at you going, I want 20 more, you know, and you're just there dying and you're going, what? It's not about that. It's about doing it properly, because then you're actually using the muscles you're meant to be using, the tendons that are meant to be working are working, the bones that are meant to be strengthening are being strengthened. Otherwise, you're just going to injure yourself. So quality over quantity, absolutely. I say twice weekly if you can. Just incorporating those things of getting up and down off the floor, picking something up, carrying something, pushing and pulling something. And it's about, as I said, movement patterns, not, you know, like, let's go to a machine and do that. It's about movement patterns. So doing full things with a full body. So I don't know, go to the floor, pick up a kettlebell with one hand over here and pick it up to here and put it down. Anything, you know, it doesn't have to be a structured kind of thing that you go into the gym and do all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be like that. Cardiovascular exercise, of course, we really have to think about the heart. We have to think about kind of getting it moving and getting a little bit out of breath and beating more than you would probably like to sometimes. But it's like, it's really important for our cholesterol levels. As we get older, the liver gets a little bit tired, and our liver does regulate our cholesterol. So we also have to watch the cholesterol levels. So it's really important to help exercise for good cholesterol as well. And as we've already said, the arteries and the blood pressure. But getting the heart rate up does increase, as we said, this increase in insulin sensitivity. And studies have shown that 60 to 80% of maximum heart rate is all we need for 20 minutes. So getting a little bit out of breath and getting a little bit sweaty. So all we need to do is do something that's time efficient. If you're not sleeping, don't do it. Well, don't do it too late at night. I mean, I wouldn't do anything too late at night anyway. And like we said, do something that you enjoy, whatever it is. Aerobic exercise is also important, kind of post-menopausal, because that, as we said, the heart disease is still that #1 killer. And it does, as we said earlier, stimulate that mitochondria. So keeping that really help those healthy cells as we get older as well. And I always say, mix it up. We are massive creatures of habit. And everybody I know, they go, well, I do this on a Monday and that on a Tuesday and this on a Wednesday, which is fine. It's fine. But that class that you do, you have to be doing something different, or that particular thing that you go to. Try and mix it up. Try and learn a new skill. Try and do something maybe that you haven't done before. And just, you know, train that brain. It doesn't matter what it is. If you've got kids, do something that you used to do that you haven't done before. Maybe go and put some roller skates on, or, you know, anything. Just have a little bit of fun. And, you know, ping pong. I mean, I've been playing ping pong on my dining table with my boy, only because he can beat me now, but he's got one of those little nets, you know, and you just clip it to the side and we have a game of ping pong's amazing for the brain. And it might not get you massively out of breath, but and you might not think I've exercised today, but you've exercised the brain, you know, it's been amazing. And people just don't think things like that. So also doing things outdoors can be really good for some people. That can alleviate kind of depressive symptoms and really bring down stress levels, especially lots of, you know, green things and stuff to look at. It can just be great to be outdoors and with other people. So it's about basically, you know, adding stuff that's a bit more fun than the boring stuff. I'm a real fan of extra snacking. So if you have an office job and you sit down on your butt all day, just go, right, what can I do really quickly? Run up and down the stairs twice, 3 times, run out your door and run up and down the street. Something that you can incorporate into your day. Keep a skipping rope next to you somewhere. You know, if you like dancing, put a track on and have a little dance around, boogie around the room in it for, you know, 3 minutes or whatever, anything. Just sitting on our bottoms all day is really, really not healthy for us. And getting up, I would say, once every 45 minutes is better for you than going down the gym for an hour and doing a massive workout. It's just healthier. That's how we were meant to live. That's how tribal people live. Then sit on their arse all day for 6 hours and then go, right, it's dinner time, and go off and, you know, they're hunting all day. And then they might get a bit tired, so they'll sit down, get up, carry on. That's just what it's like. So we kind of need to be aware that it's not healthy kind of sitting down all day. And as I've said before, you know, recovery being just as important as the exercise itself. And I would say, you know, if you know that you're stressed, I'd do this first and get to this point first before you even look at everything else. Making sure you sleep well first, making sure that your stress levels are fine first. Then I would start looking at adding in the other stuff, because you're not going to get to that point if you're trying to kill yourself with the mental exercise. So, you know, little things just like breath work, closing your eyes and doing 5 deep breaths, try and exhale out longer than you exhale in is just, that's all it takes sometimes just to bring, you know, those levels down. I think I've rabbled on for long enough, but I just want to kind of let you be aware of getting out of that, you know, calorie burning mindset, because it's still there. You know, I teach spinning and people still look at the end to see how much calories they've burnt. And it's like, oh no. And then they might look at a difference between choosing a 500 calorie spin session or a yoga session, which is actually what they need. They just have to start thinking about it from a, you know, a bodily, what does my body crave at the moment, and giving your body that. And it is about, like Michelle said, having some fun and listening to the body. Is that me done? Yay.
Fantastic, thank you. Has anybody got any questions?
I don't have a question, but
yeah,
Jackie, that was so informative. And especially the bit where you went on about the blood vessels and exercise and how your body changes as it gets older.
Yeah.
And it hit home with me, because I used to exercise 4 to 6 times a week, no problem. I was tired, but I was tired and I could still go to the gym. And I'm at that stage now where I'm tired enough physically, I cannot do it. But what I also found was, you know, that the soreness you get after exercise the next day, but you were sore, but it was manageable. And what I've noticed as I've got older is it's not manageable. It was too sore, and it took me a lot longer to recover. So it's you've just I didn't know. Now I kind of know why. I think what I'm trying to say is, from the presentation tonight, now I know why. Because I was thinking, am I going crazy? And what's wrong with me, kind of thing. It just and it has been taking me a lot longer to get my energy back. So no, it was really good. I feel less crazy now, thanks.
I mean, I would say that, you know, even if you do those 2 or 3 or however many kind of, when you say harder sessions that you can do, never ever do them back to back. Always give yourself a minimum of 2 days in between each one, especially when you're starting out. And I'd also say, if you're that sore, you might want to think about some Epsom salts or magnesium stuff, because that really helps the central nervous system and the muscles soreness as well. But just back off, you know, for a while, and let the body recover a bit more.
Yeah,
especially if you're not sleeping great, you can't. That's when your recovery happens.
Well, what I did, I changed it up. I stopped doing them overnight and started doing them in the morning.
Yeah.
And more so as well for that brain fog that we spoke about earlier. It helped with that kind of setting you up for the day almost.
Yeah, so, I agree. I'm a morning exerciser too. I can't do night. If I do night, it has to be yoga. Can't do anything else. I'm the same.
No, that was really good. Thank you. And I'll look for I might have a look, see if that Lisa Mosconi's got any kind of books or anything that
she has. She's got, it's called the XX Brain.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
I might have it here actually. Oh, it's up there. I'll show you, and then you know what it looks like. Hold on.
Yeah, fab. Oh, brilliant.
Oh, Fabulous, thank you.
Brilliant book. She does a few TED Talks as well. Have a look for her TED Talks. Just look her up. She's brilliant.
Okay, fab, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you. Any more questions before we move on? No? Fabulous. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Shell. Bless you. Well, do you want to finish your screen on? Brilliant. Okay. Lovely. Thank you. That's so for me, really, it kind of just leads us on quite nicely, as in, you know, that's the nutrition and the kind of the physical side of things. But sort of my day job is looking after people's energy, but a lot of it is what's going on in the brain. And for a lot of us, you know, you were saying earlier, we lose our confidence, we've got this brain fog, we can't think straight, we get overwhelmed, we get stressed, we think we're depressed. You know, we've got all these things going on. And, you know, with listening to Jackie and her slides, I thought, bloody hell, this getting old lot's pretty shit, isn't it? You know, and you just think, oh God, is that what we've got to look forward to? You know, it's all a bit, a bit depressing. So it's how we keep that sort of positive mindset. And, you know, whether sort of if you're getting overwhelmed, I always say to my clients, have a brain dump. So whatever it is that you're worrying about, just write everything down, stick it all on paper, get it into some kind of perspective. I was saying to a client today, who's really suffering. She's got a lot of things going on about that sort of sandwich effect. You know, she's got the child from hell giving her shite. She's got parents giving her shite, you know, just, ugh. And so I said, get your diary out and think about all those things that keep you up in the middle of the night, and put it in your diary for a time that you are going to allow yourself to worry about those things should the time come. And it's almost psychologically, you've done something about it, you've taken control. And just by putting it in the diary, you know, okay, I can worry about that in 2 weeks. I don't need to be worrying about that right now. Or I can worry about that on Thursday. Not tonight, I can go to sleep. So it's just about kind of unraveling, you know. Sometimes our brains are like filing cabinets. And all the doors are open and all the papers have been flown around all over the place, you know, and it's just about filing everything just to quieten that mind. And mindfulness, taking those deep breaths like you were saying, Jackie, sometimes just, you know, we're just at 100 miles an hour because we've got so many things to think about that we just need to take a step back. And another thing, if you've got just a load of crap running around in your brain, taking that step back in your own mind and looking at your thoughts like a third party and thinking, right, is that really going on? Am I being irrational? Is that really logical? You know, because we worry about things that we really don't need to worry about. So meditation has literally saved my life through many things. So I am a meditation hippie queen. I can't help myself. But I've done a lot of study as well, and how you can change your brain, how you can change your mindset. You know, and they say that when you go to bed at night, if for that last 4 minutes before you nod off to sleep, you are, you know, setting positive intentions, doing positive affirmations, that is literally equates to 4 hours of the subconscious mind taking that in while you're sleeping. So don't go to bed worrying. You know, it's a case of, right, it's bedtime now. Don't go looking on your app or looking on, you know, what's going on in the news and what shit happening, you know, is happening in the world. We don't need to know that at bedtime. Make it positive. The same as Dr. Bruce Lipton. He has sort of proven as well, you know, we've got cells, we can have things wrong with us, we can have DNA, you know, we can say, oh, we're like that because my mum was a worrier, or, you know, X, Y, and Z. But the brain doesn't know, it can't differentiate between the truth and kind of what you tell it. So if you keep saying to yourself, like, I'm guilty. Oh my God, I've got Alzheimer's, I've got brain fog, and all those sorts of things. Sometimes you can make it worse because you're literally, you're constantly, see, I forgot that. Oh God, something must be wrong with me. So it's kind of retraining the brain. So Dr. Bruce Lipton has proven that your cells, that they're covered in a protein, and that protein is like a receptor to outside information. So, if we keep telling ourselves positive things and that protein builds up of this, oh my God, keep getting this same information, that's interesting, oh, that's different, eventually this cell will open up and the protein will pull that positive information into that cell, and the cell will actually change. It will be manipulated by your thoughts. So it's so important to try and keep a positive mindset while all this kind of madness is going on within our hormones, within our bodies, and all those sorts of things. So, YouTube have got so many free meditations that you can listen to. Some of them might just be positive affirmations at bedtime, or if your confidence is really bad at the moment, or you're feeling overwhelmed, just stick that in as a guided meditation. And and just listen to it. And even if you go to sleep, it doesn't matter, because the subconscious mind will still be listening. So that's kind of my little bit, really, with regards to trying to keep positive, even when just chaos is going on in your head, in your body, in your hormones. It's just keep going. And if you are having a crap day, rather than beating yourself up, accept, okay, I'm having a crap day today. I'm going to have a bed day if needs be, if the kids will let you, or everybody else. And do sort of guided meditations or a bit of yoga, or just a bit of stretching, or just getting out in nature and going and having a walk. It's just about being kind to yourself, because I think as women more so, we are so self-critical. We think that we need to be superhuman, and we really don't. And, we've already got a lot of things on our shoulders. So, we are our own worst critics. So it's really, really important that we're kind to ourselves and each other. So I'm going to take you on a guided meditation. So you're going off to see Mother Earth, because I'm a bit of a hippie. So you can go off screen if you want to, but I literally want you to get in a position that you can relax, that you can close your eyes and just listen in, really. But if you want to take your videos off so that you can just chill out, that's absolutely fine. And I think for this bit, actually, I'm going to take my video off the screen. Okay. So just first of all, just while you're sort of getting yourself relaxed, I just want you to start just going inside yourself, just starting to take some deep breaths, just breathing in and out, and just allowing your body to relax. Just taking in your breath, seeing how that feels in your body. And if you haven't done so already, I want you to close your eyes. And now I want you to take some real big, deep, cleansing breaths, filling your lungs all the way up to the top. And then just releasing any tensions with your outward breath. And taking another deep cleansing breath. And this time I want you to imagine any stagnant negative energies just leaving with your breath. And then just let it all go. And take a third deep cleansing breath. And as you release, I want you to feel your body and all of your muscles beginning to relax. So now I want you to imagine But you are out somewhere in nature. And you are surrounded by fields and trees. And the sky is blue. And the temperature is just perfect for you. And the only sounds that you can hear are birds in the trees and the rustling leaves against the gentle breeze. And just up ahead, there's a winding path. And I'd like you to make your way towards it. And as you reach the path, you hear the number 10 in your mind. And as you continue walking, you hear the number 9 and 8 as you go deeper and deeper. And then you hear the number 7 and 6. And you feel deeply, deeply relaxed as you walk down even further. 5 and 4. You just feel your mind begin to empty itself from the outside world as you hear the numbers 3, 2, and 1. You now find yourself standing at the foot of a cave, which looks as though it's been perfectly carved out in the side of a hill. It somehow feels familiar, yet you can't remember ever coming here before, but it feels completely safe to go inside. And now you find yourself walking in. The cave has a long, narrow path, but in the distance you can see a light. And you take the path as you continue to walk. You feel deeply, deeply relaxed. And yet you feel intrigued as to what you will find when you get there. And as you keep walking ahead, you can just feel all of your stresses and worries just disappear. And now nothing seems to matter down here. And already it feels like a huge weight is being lifted from your shoulders with every step. And as you get nearer to the light, you can now hear the sound of water flowing. And you can just make out a beautiful pool with a waterfall flowing down into the turquoise blue liquid. And it just looks so inviting. It's so warm down here, and there's no one around. And you find yourself now at the entrance of this beautiful space. And as you look around, you see that the walls are made of crystal. And you can literally feel its vibrations humming throughout your body. It feels gentle and comforting. You look into the pool and it's so clear and inviting. You put your hand into the water and it's the temperature of a warm bath. You look around, there's no one here. Go on, take your clothes off and get into the water. And it just feels so magical. And as you bask in this comforting liquid, you can't help but think about your life so far. The good things that have happened and the not so good things. And you realise just how other people's influences have shaped you into the person that you are today. You think about things that have happened that may have held you back for what feels like a lifetime. And yet now you see it for what it really is. Just memories of other people's opinions at that time. And yet none of it is actually true. It's like a revelation to you. You can't help but smile. You can't believe that something that now seems so trivial has affected you for so long. You take a big, deep breath and then go underwater and feel your body cleanse itself in this beautiful space. You feel how your body relaxes even further. And you notice that any pain or niggles in your body, they now just disappear. And as you lie there in the water, you begin to feel young again. You feel re-energized, invigorated. Wow, what is this place? It just feels so familiar. You come up for air and feel that vibration. And you can hear a gentle beating sound. Is it music? It sounds so familiar. Oh wow, it's the sound of a heartbeat. You are basking in the womb of Mother Earth. This is a place of new beginnings. A space to rebirth and be the person you were always destined to be. You take a big, deep breath as you lie there in this safe space. And realise that this is your opportunity now to cleanse yourself and make new choices and positive changes to your life. The world's your oyster. So who do you choose to be? And what will you do for you? Mother Earth fills your heart and soul with such love. You feel completely healed of all the past and feel able to forgive and just let it all go. You step out of the pool. You get dressed, feeling giddy with excitement. And you give thanks to Mother Earth for giving you this opportunity. Make your way now back down the path, back towards the entrance with a newfound energy. You feel so positive about the future. Even your physical body feels lighter and brighter. And as you come out into the light, back out into the beautiful countryside, you hear the number 1. And in your own mind, you start to count up to 10. And you know that by the time you reach number 10, you'll be wide awake, feeling fully refreshed and raring to go.